Can you all hear us? Can someone give a thumbs up?
If I said yes.
Oh, okay, Joe gave a thumbs up, we're good, okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I don't know how this is all gonna run, but can I just ask a question? With two staff members here, one of you is a moderator, right? And the other, I mean, the work group is 6 people and a moderator.
Well,
Go ahead. No, he's asking you. Go ahead.
well, the commission voted, and Megan went back and listened to or watched the video. The commission voted for the chairman to pick 3 people to be on the work group. So the work group is really the 3 commission members. And then you were, I guess, directed through the motion to work with Hillary and her group.
Well, that wasn't really it, though. I mean, the whole point of the work group was to be able to engage.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But the commission didn't vote to appoint people outside of the commission to the work group, and I think we're getting like a little technical.
Yeah, no, it is, except I think, you know, this has been a contentious issue as far as I can see, and I'm new to it. So I think it is pretty important, Leslie, that we know who the moderator is, and then, you know, it's not a moderator for.
Do you want to hear from staff or?
So look, we all agreed, Barry, that you and Abby are equal in this now.
Correct.
So.
Correct.
So, I'd like to hear from anybody. That's just my point of view. If everybody has a different point of view, that's great.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get the ground rules straight. before we-
Well, I was picturing this as a really informal discussion between the 3 commission members and, you know, Hillary and her team and you know, Barrett, what are you thinking?
I mean, you know, I kind of envision this thing as Leslie said, to be, pretty simple and straightforward, that it didn't need a whole bunch of complexity initially associated with it. We, I think, can moderate ourselves. You'll have a staff person here who I know will try to keep us on track. I think it's a matter of just learning to be very civilized adults. Trying to, you know, again, I think we can moderate ourselves here in the process. If it proves to be otherwise, then maybe we need to put additional steps into place. But
Everybody agree? Is everybody okay with that? We moderate ourselves?
yeah, I think we can.
Okay, great.
I think we can be civil among things here at this point. And, you know, the other thing too is that I think no matter what the outcome is of this, you know, we'll have tried our best with it. But there may, you know, the outcome too may also boil down to the fact that there is no compromise with things, and we need to be accepting of that too. So there's a range of things that can come out of this, but we don't know until we start entering into the dialogue, and figure out what the hell's going on. You know, and try to at least begin to, you know, figure out what all the different pieces are we need to come into place to try to make this work. I mean, that's my opinion of things, but that is exactly what that is. It's my opinion, nothing else. It has no.
Right, so at some point, we sort of have to get started on how the discussion might begin, and I think it'll just take off from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put together with Abby's help,
Hello.
with Abby's help, a document that tries to at least put in one place where we are now and what the NPDC's proposals are as of now.
Thank
And what Hillary's is. And to try to use that as, well, where are the gaps then? And then I tried to put what I think the gaps are. And again, I'm new to this, but I deliberately didn't go too far back to history. I just wanted to see where we are and what I think is to be the areas that we've got to compromise on. Because I sincerely hope that the result of this is we don't reach compromise, because that for me would be a failure.
It's a failure, maybe just the differences of opinion.
Yeah,
I- I'm not sure I wanna set it up as fail or not.
No, a win would be if we can reach a set of compromises that, as we talked about at the last meeting, to allow, Hillary to take no action at the special town meeting, but have a really nailed down document that would go forward to the spring town meeting. For me, that would be the win.
So I'd like to respond to that, but I'd like to just step back for a minute and introduce my team, because I
Yeah,
don't know,
please.
everybody knows the team. So you all know me, I'm Hillary Hedges Rayford, and I have been concerned about and observing about some of the challenges that we have on Nantucket. You know, driving here on the way over, I passed, I think, 25 signs about not wanting windmills and about concern about all the cars. You know, would you like to have 1,000 more cars here? So it really sets the stage of, you know, we are where we are as an island today because of choices that we made 10, 15, 20 years ago. And when I started talking with and thinking to people back in 2020, 2021 about, you know, where is this island going, and is there anything we can do to change the trajectory in terms of the problems that we have with traffic, with environmental pollution, some of the quality of life issues. And then I started learning more about this planning commission, and I felt that maybe some structural changes to the planning commission could unlock more planning, because our plan at that point was 12 years out of date. It's now 15 years old. And I think that planning makes a big difference, and has for Nantucket, because it was this commission that created the land bank, that created the major commercial development, zoning bylaw, that did the wellhead protection, the harbor overlay. So planning does matter. And the article that is now a bill that we're here to talk about, it's a bill at the State House now because it was passed at town meeting in 2023. And an earlier article, again, another citizen's petition that I bought in 2022, was referred to the NPDC for study by a margin of 16 votes. And it's been 2.5 years that this article has, since the article and the whole topic of your structure has been referred for study. And I think the good news is that, you know, everybody agrees that there could be some structural changes to the NPDC, and you've proposed some. And town meeting has also proposed some. So I've invited some folks here to the table to talk about whether or not we could bring these two different visions together and I would say not take no action at this special town meeting, but propose amendments at this special town meeting. And it's Rick Atherton. So Rick is a former Board of Selectmen at the time, that's what we called it, member. He served on the Finance Committee, and he's applied and not been appointed to the NPDC. Have you ever served on the NPDC?
Let's go back to date that, that's like 1993. Talk about ancient history, John.
So
A long history, a
Rick's-
long history.
Rick's been around and has paid special attention to planning, so I felt that he could be very helpful here
I
at the
did serve
table.
as a select board member on the NPDC
Correct.
for 1 or 2 years.
Yes, you did.
Not way back, that's only back 7 years.
And was very chair at that point.
I'm not sure I remember.
Might have been, sure.
Could well have been.
Might have
I'm
been.
not sure.
Yeah. And Georgia is a lawyer by training and has a very long history with preservation on Nantucket. She was president at the Nantucket Preservation Trust. She had the idea to start the easement program that's been very successful, and she also served on the Historical Commission with me. So yeah, we're here to see if we can push this in a mutually agreeable direction. But I do want to clarify that we don't see any productive point in agreeing to not call the article, because somebody else will call the article. We would like to see if we have some agreement to improve the article. Because the article, the purpose of this being on the warrant is to instruct the state about what we want to do, which is gonna be, you know, an evolving process over time. It could involve multiple town meetings. So we think we have an opportunity to move things in the right direction. From your perspective, I mean, we're happy with where it is now, but we agree that it would be good to all be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that town meeting, as we all know, has its own mind, and you never
Mhm.
quite know when an article's there and someone calls it and, you know, you're off and running. So whatever we come to agree upon would need some real strong support from people involved in placing the article on, and from the NP and EDC, who's obviously very interested and involved. And if we can do that, that's great, but if we can't, the article's there, it's gonna be called. I think we should all expect that and have to figure out how to deal with it, so.
Mhm.
And I would like to say, just as a preservationist to my core, that in looking back on the 2002, 2003, whenever it was, I wrote the warrant article that whereby the town authorized present conservation easements on houses and on their interiors if needed, if requested. When I wrote that warrant article, we got it through town meeting and it was not even particularly controversial. I wonder if now, if I presented the same easement article, there would be so much agreement about the value of preservation. The reason I'm here is that I think preservation is critical to the survival of the island as it is, and why people come here. We have beaches, but lots of people have beaches. The reason they come here is that we have an extraordinary asset in our towns and in Sconset, in its historicity, which I think has to be a part of the whole planning process.
So would that be a good place to start? I mean, we did have one meeting and we didn't really have any agreement. So what, from reflecting on that, where do you guys stand at this point?
Well. Okay, do you want? So let me understand what you just said, that no matter what we wind up doing inside this work group, the article is still gonna get called. No matter what.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so what is,
All right, I think I said it's likely to be called, and I didn't mean by Hillary or Georgia or Rick. We're gonna have 300 people still.
I understand.
Anybody can call.
This is true, absolutely at this point, but you know, again, the person who wrote the article, I think, would set the tone to it. I thought you said something to that effect. Where you said that no matter what the outcome is, somehow the article's still gonna move forward. Help me to understand what you said, so I'm saying it correctly.
What I said was that our goal here is to find areas of mutual agreement
Yeah.
to amend the article to
Okay,
be more in line with your hopes for for improving and creating a more representative, accountable planning commission. So you put a structure on the table, which is, we can describe it, but I think we both know what it is, and we have a structure on the table, so we appreciate John's initiative last time we met to say, let's see if we can move these closer together, so that's why we're here.
I mean, because I'd kind of like to find out what the whole bailiwick is of what you're asking the changes to be with this. I mean, we certainly talked ad nauseum about one particular thing that was almost an hour and a half long, where I think it could be a little bit shorter, but nonetheless, and it was only just really focused on the historic preservation component of this. That seemed to be the main thrust of everything. And there still, I don't think, was a reasonable outcome with it, but I also walked away with the sense too that there was a lot more that you were looking for in terms of what you would like to see happen with the NP and EDC, and I'd like to know what all those parameters are. Of where you see that you feel that we need to make changes with things. I think that would be helpful in terms of the overall process of things. So that way, if everything's up on the table, there's no, oh, we missed that piece, or, we really should have talked about that. I think here's an opportunity to look at the whole thing, not just this one particular focus area. Because I do remember asking you at that meeting, that if we were to have figured out both the elected versus appointed and the historic preservationist on the thing, that you would be willing to, I think I asked you to be willing to take it as, and adopt the FinCon thing, which was to take no action. You said, no, no, absolutely not. So it makes me feel like there's more that we need to be discussing beyond just even what you see on the sheet. And so at least in my mind's eye, I've got the two other people here can certainly chime in. But in my mind's eye, I would really love to know what all those things are, so that there's really no surprises here.
Hillary, before you, just as Barry said, he wants us all to chime in. There are actually not two items here. I took, my takeaway from the last meeting was there were 5, and these are the 5. I wonder, I realize you haven't had a chance to look at this yet. But if you could perhaps take a quick look, I mean, if rather than, it's this big, if it's really these 5 items, if they're the keys to it, then I would really urge us to, let's start there then with those and see how we get on. And if we can't even reach agreement on these 5, well, then, but if we can, then if there is anything else, yeah, bring it on, but let's.
No, I think the parameters are pretty well drawn. I mean, the Article 16, which is with just a 1-word change, the same as the bill that's currently at the State House Bill 2467, seeks to create a more representative planning commission that we think will also be more accountable to the people, the voting people of Nantucket. And it has 5 directly elected commissioners, elected at large, and 1 representative each from 6 other boards, which are the 3 current boards, the Land Bank, and the Historical Commission, and the Planning Board. So one of the big, what are the big differences between what you proposed and what we proposed? But more importantly, characteristically, I mean, I think if you're going to try to merge a vision, it's important to talk about what that vision is. I mean, I think the purpose of this Regional Planning Commission is to get long-range planning done so that 10, 20 years from now, we've steadily been working and revisiting what we need to do to create the island we envision, and that is a community vision. And part of the challenge with this current planning commission, from the view of the perspective of the petitioners, is that no one who has a passion for long-range planning can serve directly on this commission. Unless you're appointed by this commission. So you choose your own at-large members. And, that is currently persists in your proposal, unless you've changed it. I mean, I guess it was a little up in the air, but the idea that, there needs to be at-large members, but it needs to be something that doesn't promote groupthink. It needs to be something where if somebody is passionate and has the qualifications and the backgrounds and wants to serve, but they think differently than you, they have a path to get on this planning commission. So that is one element, is the at-large members, and we propose that they be directly elected.
So maybe that would be a good one to start then. So if we go down to the 4th item, it's not to say it's the only way, but one option would be, I'm trying to stay away from, for a second or two, the elected versus appointed, because there's some, you know, there are some very, you know, differently held views on why we need appointed versus elected. But, you know, you're right, at this moment, at-large members are appointed by the commission. So one solution which came up was, okay, well, how about we have an appointing committee that is made up of the 5 county commissioners or select board members and 5 members from the board. So now it's not the board appointing its own at-large members, it's a melded appointing committee of county commissioners and the board. That's one way to go some way towards the observation of the board is appointing itself, is appointing its own members. And then along with that was that we, for each of the at-large positions, that we really take some time and figure out what are the skills and experiences we are looking for each of those positions. And then this melded advisory committee take that as that is, you know, that's their mission, is to fill those at-large positions with people that have these skills and experience. And we have a diverse group of people making that decision, which is a little different now. So, I mean, that came up during the meeting in different pieces, at different times during that 2.5-hour meeting. But I mean, is that something we want to perhaps get people to talk about?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a point of?
I'm not the chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
We don't have a chair.
go ahead, I think we're fine. But I just personally, I want to kind of keep things within the work group as well too, so. But John and I would like to.
Ted, I mean, I would love to hear what Ted's question is, because it's also for the public, so.
Okay, thanks. Yes, thank you very much. I just want to understand the different approach and thinking between the rationale for having elected versus appointed members.
Mhm.
And what is the dichotomy of rationale, justification, thinking, why not to have directly elected or to have directly elected versus appointed?
Mhm.
And I just wanted to get a clarification on it, because I much.
Abby has her hand raised.
Yeah,
Address that. Abby?
Yeah, can you guys hear me, hopefully?
Yes.
Okay. We did discuss this, Ted, thank you for bringing it up. We did discuss this at the previous commission meeting, and I think that there was a thought that based on our experience from getting people on town boards, commissions, that a lot more access, and if we're looking to have a diverse group of people serving on this commission, which it sounds like everybody wants, and we want it to be as accessible as possible, that the appointment process, which is doesn't cost any money and is easier, would be more likely to give us more candidates and people more access. Because one of the concerns with elections that Brooke brought up from her experience and others have brought up is that any election, regardless, it costs some amount of money to do. And if we really want this commission to be accessible to anybody in the community, that doing the appointment process is easier and obviously less cost prohibitive for people. So that was one of the concerns as to why we wanted it to be appointed, just so that someone who's in the community who might feel passionate about this would be able to be involved without having to mount the cost of doing an election. So that was one of our concerns.
I'd just like to piggyback something from Abby. So when I was appointed to the planning board, it felt like an election because it was a melded, selection committee of the select board and the planning board. And I didn't feel in any way that this felt like an interview. And it felt like they were delving into my background to make sure I really did have the skills and the experience to do this. So I don't, a properly run appointed process with the right guardrails around it. It isn't a slam dunk for a small group of people to say, this is who we want, it isn't. And, I think it does, I'm reiterating what Abby said, but it does help ensure we get the right kinds of experience and skills, which is critical, especially on something like this, where it is extremely long-term planning. So,
Just one comment, I think when our experience with melded appointing boards are usually when there's a person's term, that the person has resigned before the end of the term, so whether it happens on the school committee or on other boards, the planning board is an example. But the normal appointment process involves just one appointing committee. Usually that's the rest of it, so it could be some other committee.
Sorry about that.
And that doesn't include the members of the committee itself. And I just think that's an important distinction. I think once, you can imagine the school committee appointing their own member all by themselves. I'm not sure the community would think that's an open process. It's kind of an inside deal. And so I think that's why have always preferred that self-appointment is not the best way to go. You obviously, whether you are officially involved in appointing, you certainly have the ability to manage and be involved and talk to people, help find people who want to apply for appointment. Not much different than finding candidates. Lots of people look around for candidates for various offices, and to me, it's sort of a similar process.
Yeah, and I have a couple other things to add to that. Oh, sorry, Barry, did you?
Yeah, no, I wanted, well, and I would like to have you expand on a few things, just so I'm clear on some points. But I'll save that for a moment. I just, Rick, to kind of go with what you were saying, that's why the commission took the time to really think about how do we really look at an appointment process that maybe gets it out of just our hands. And we really did have some robust discussions about that. We looked at maybe using the town moderator. We looked at the FinCom doing an appointment. We looked at the town manager doing an appointment. We looked at the town clerk doing an appointment. What seemed to be the majority consensus, although we haven't agreed to it yet, was a matter of using a combination of 5 people of the regional planning commission, and then using the 5 county commissioners under which to do it. That seemed to be where where the entire commission was gravitating towards. So I think there was an earnest effort to get it out of just of our own bailiwick and expand the process. And I think with the elected, and again, this is my take on it, with the appointed positions, the appointed positions, that's what you're going to see is some type of thing that removes it from us, if not in its entirety, at least to a good certain extent where it's more rounded. So I don't, what do you guys think about that? I mean, I just want to challenge that assertion that, that's what's happening, and have you maybe realize that we really have taken to heart what's been said.
So what we're responding to is a planning commission that we think really needs to be improved because of the track record. And we need change. And we're only gonna get change if we do something really different. So, I agree, there are advantages and disadvantages to appointments and elections, both of them. There are many elected boards on Nantucket. The CPC has elected and appointed members. The SHAB has all elected. There are other planning commissions, like the Martha's Vineyard Commission has 9 elected positions. And we also have, we have a lot of elections where there aren't a variety of people that stand, but we also have appointments where people don't put forward for appointments. So I actually think that you could make arguments positive and negative for each. I recognize that. But I don't see an argument for keeping the board that is trying to choose the people that are aligned with what it's doing involved in the process. That's one. And two, I'm with all due respect, there is nothing similar in terms of putting yourself up for an appointment to 5 or even 10 people to actually standing in the public eye and having everybody say, I believe this person. And all of the people who didn't get to vote for the person who was appointed would not agree that they feel like that person stood for election. The reason perhaps that the energy of the change is towards elected right now is because we have had some really unsupportable and not understandable appointments recently, where people with deep resumes of experience and educational degrees and professional experience in areas relevant to the commissions that they've been successfully sitting on have been displaced by folks that haven't even been to a commission meeting. So, we really do have in the community a lot of misgivings, and we have qualified people quitting and not wanting to serve. So, this is a change petition. It's a reform petition. It is a petition from people who are not happy with how planning is getting done. So we proposed 5 elected members, 5 elected at-large members. I would be the first to say there's flexibility around that. But I just don't see how we can support the idea of, the planning commission has been appointing its own people since it started having at-large members. And, we're focused on the track record of the last 15 years. And it's not worked out well. So that's why we're looking, for change.
So could you maybe re-articulate why you feel as though going to elected is going to be superior in the process? I mean, I made some notes, but I'd really like to hear you recap what exactly all the points are for why, because I think that's important.
Well, elected
Okay.
office is the cornerstone of democracy, Barry. I mean.
Let's get beyond the high level of that. That's a great soundbite. But let's get down to the brass tacks of what really are the main reasons why.
Well, I think Hillary said that, if you don't mind my repeating it.
I would love to hear it.
Hillary
repeated back.
said that a candidate who's standing for election stands up, says what their values are and their purposes in being elected to this role. And what their background is, what makes them a justifiable candidate. And then people will decide whether they believe that or don't believe that, whether they prefer that standard or would rather just keep it in-house and let people appoint themselves. It seems pretty clear to me what an election quality, an elected quality brings to the table.
And it also means that you can vote the person out if they're not doing, if they're not making a difference. Or if they misrepresented themselves and they didn't actually deliver the promises that they ran on.
And the same would be true if they were appointed as well. They can be dismissed.
Yes, if they, I've experienced that. I ran the historical commission for 3 years and then I was not reappointed.
There's what we all think, and then, I researched where do the states stand on this, and their most recent opinion was that moving local officials and boards from elected to appointed positions include attracting a wider candidate pool with stronger credentials and relevant professional experience. And, you know, that's the state speaking. And I, for one, believe that to be true. So I mean, we can all have our own opinions, but the state for sure are moving towards appointed is a better
Well,
route to go.
I mean, they've observed that, but I don't think there's anything that says from the state that appointed is a better way to go. I think it's situational. But I would also bring up that there was an article to make the planning board appointed. And the planning board fought it tooth and nail. They wanted to remain elected.
Look, if we want to go, like I said, I'm new to this. If we want to start going back to what the planning board, first of all, we're not talking about the planning board, but if we're gonna go too far back, like these are terrible organizations and they haven't done what they should do. I don't think that is honestly very productive, given what we are trying to do, which is close some final gaps between what we have today and what the commissioners have moved towards already. What you would like, Hillary, the gaps, I don't want to sound that they're too small, but you know, the board has moved, the commission has moved a long way already. So I just feel like we should try to refrain from what you think the past looked like and what perhaps the board members feel like the past looked like in terms of what you know, what the performance was and what the results were. So,
Well,
okay.
I appreciate that the commission has moved, but I don't feel that they've moved a long way. The major movement has been to reduce the membership of the planning board from 5 to 3. 3 members is still a quorum of the planning board on this commission. But I admit, I mean, it wasn't easy. There were a lot of people who didn't want to reduce the planning board at all. The only other, there's still 3 at-large members in your proposal. They are still appointed by your own group, although you're looking to blend it, but you're still involved. So I would consider that really minor movement. The major movement that you all, the major change that you all are, you know, putting out there, it's not, you haven't brought anything to town meeting, but what you're proposing now is to increase the number of people on the commission from 11 to 13. And to do that by adding more appointments from other boards. So, you know, to that point, I think it's change for change's sake. It's not that I don't think that, you know, well, let me just put it this way. 11 is already an unwieldy size, and 13 is even more so. You know, is it a mountain that I would say, oh, you know, we absolutely can't accept? No. But the thing that's even more, I think it moves in the wrong direction for the benefit of the community because the board is bigger and even more unwieldy. But the other thing that is really, I think, going to create problems for an effective functioning board is that our initiative was to increase the number of elected people, increase the number of directly elected people from 0 to 5, but also to decrease the number of people who are appointed through other boards. Because boards of boards have even less accountability, and then you all have to appoint so many people to other boards. So you're getting, you know, someone, say, from the Cultural Council to be appointed here. They ran for the Cultural Council. Now they're serving on the NPEDC. Then they're asked to serve on, you know, one of the 5 on the CRAC, or I guess it's not the CRAC, but there's like 5 other boards, the Housing Trust, the Contract Review Committee, the Rural Advisory Committee. You have an appointment to the Ocean Management Committee. So it's like, I just think we should be going more in the direction of people who say, I want to be on the NPEDC because I want to do long-range planning for Nantucket, and not have all these boards of boards, and then you have boards of boards of boards.
Well, I can speak personally then, because yes, I am a planning board member and was elected to this board. I feel as strongly about this board as I do the planning board. I don't think I've missed a meeting of any kind for either board. And I think that the experience of the planning board helps on this and vice versa, actually. Maybe go back the other way. I serve on the capital planning board, and I only bring this up to say that I was asked to do that because of my background. And I find being on all three to be an advantage, not a disadvantage. And I hope that I add value to all three because of that. So I'm not really understanding why you take that kind of process as being somehow not a good one, because I think it is a good one, actually.
Could be a question of how many people represent other boards in that context, as opposed to how many people represent what we might call the public at large.
I mean, just one comment on that. I've always been concerned, for example, when members of the finance committee sit on the boards, because there's a tendency for that board then to recognize the importance, let's say, of the finance committee. And there's some intangible deferring to their point of view. And it also makes the receiving board, in that case, the finance committee, difficult to disagree with the member who participates and brings back a point of view. That maybe you guys can do that, but it's not easy. You have to say, I don't agree with that. And it just creates difficulty when there's cross-fertilization in my mind, okay? You may disagree, but that's one point of view here.
I probably would disagree with that
You're perfectly welcome to do so.
because I think that if, you know, you're right, sometimes individuals will defer to certain individuals, but on the other side of the coin too, I've seen them rail against it as well. And I think there's both there, so I wouldn't just want to chalk it up to just saying, by the way, the FinCom, you know as well as I do, they can't really sit on anything else.
Yeah, well, it's a little different today.
But anyways.
The town council opined differently.
Yes, but I think people are still beholden to that general concept, but nonetheless.
And I agree with you on that. I hope they do.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I think that I want to just throw all my eggs into that one basket and say that is uniformly the case. You raise a point which has some validity to it, but I think there's a little bit more to it than that. What I'd really like to do is, I think where I'm troubled here is that the assertions being made are what justify the results. And I think that's what I was asking you to do, Hillary, was to go back in and give me all of those bullet points as to why people should be elected for things about the board. You've mentioned a few things like more accountability to people, but I'd like to hear that list.
No,
Because that's important. I think we
Barry,
need to.
I don't think we're gonna agree on this. I mean, like I said at the beginning, there are reasons, there are positives and negatives. And Abby, by the way, has her hand up, but
Yeah.
there are positives and negatives for both.
Right.
And at this point in time, we need change, which is why our proposal and the bill in front of the State House that passed the town meeting is for 5 directly elected seats. Now, there is flexibility on that. I don't think any of us would, say we can't accept less than 5 if you want to make a proposal. But right now you're at 3 members that you appoint yourselves, and that's what it's been for the whole time period that we've said there's been inadequate planning and we need change for. So we want to do something. And, I just don't think we're going to agree. So the whole point of a compromise is that some people accept things that they don't really like.
And I would agree with that, but you've completely evaded the question.
Because I've
asked.
already answered the question so many times. I've been talking to you guys for 2.5 years. I've been saying why it should be elected for a long time.
Hillary, in my experience, you've met with us 3 times. over 2.5 years, 3 times.
Barry, I think I've been
Just,
on
no,
the,
no, that's okay, let me finish.
that,
Okay,
I object to that, and it's actually
you
factually not
can,
true.
you can object to that, that's fine. But what I'm trying to get at is you say, we should go to elected because there's more accountability to the people. Which automatically says that the commission has no accountability. I would like an explanation of that. No one has you've used the terms, no one has a long-range vision plan, and on the committee whatsoever. I would like to hear what it is that you're looking for out of that, and I'd like to challenge that assertion. There's a lot of assertions that you've made, which are incredibly good sound bites, okay? But in getting there, I don't understand how you've arrived at those conclusions. And I would like you to be able to articulate what the facts are behind it, as opposed to a generality of no one has a long-range vision plan. Okay, so no, but just bear with me, but I would like to hear more of that. Because I think we have been doing long-range visioning. But I would like to hear what it is that somehow, and there's 6 bullet points in particular that just came up out of this one conversation. I'd really like to go through each one of these and understand what it is that you keep thinking that we're missing the boat on. Because frankly, when I hear that, I'm terribly perplexed by, and
Sorry, I'll wait.
thank you, I appreciate that. I'm terribly perplexed by that because in its larger scale of things, it makes it look like the commission is completely inept. But I'd really like to drill down into how you can arrive at that conclusion when I think as a commission, there's an alternate viewpoint here. And I think that's where we're running into the snags of things. So I would really appreciate a whole lot of clarity on those issues. It would help to know, again, this is feedback that we need. And I'm always liking to think I'll listen to what it is, but when I hear just a generality, I'm caught. I'm caught. So I really love specifics here with things, so we can understand how you're getting to this much larger framework that we need to do elected. Because I think those are important pieces.
I just add, I totally agree with what Larry just said, and I wrote down at the beginning, Hillary, when you said that the track record needs to change, like what track record are you referring to specifically, which is sort of to Barry's point, because again, I think it would help with a better understanding of, what the group will look like in the future and what the, the vision and the mission will be.
Abby also has her.
Abby's had it in the first one.
Oh, oops.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it would be helpful, kind of similar, Barry and Leslie, is understanding like what is the current mission. And I know, Leslie, I think it was in the document at the last commission meeting of like, what is the actual mission of this commission? And if there is something that is not being handled within that mission, or if that mission's not correct, because I think there appears to be some misinterpretations of what this commission does versus other bodies within the town. And so really understanding like, what is the full remit of this commission today? And then is that something that maybe is looking to change? Are we able to change? But I think we kind of need to start there, because I've definitely heard a lot of confusion about, what the commission does. And like a comment like long range planning, I mean, I would believe that the planning board, which owns the entire master plan, and the planning and land use services team, like I think a lot of them obviously are doing long range planning, and there's a lot of that taking place, and maybe there's questions, thoughts, concerns with that. But then again, like if that is the issue, that really isn't the remit of this commission itself. So I think that then that might be a question, but then it would also beg to differ. But if you wanted it to be more involved with this commission, then why would you want less input from the parties that are doing that? I guess that to me would just help to clarify.
But just to go back, you know, we might find another point of discussion here, pick up a couple of these other issues. Otherwise, we might never change from where we are right now. And maybe there's something we can
Good
find,
idea.
John. You know, I sense another issue has always been the extent of the, let's use the word commitment or whatever word you'd like to do in terms of the historic preservation and maintaining our architectural integrity is an important part of the regional planning, I would think. And that's why it was mentioned to ask for a seat for the historical commission. That didn't seem unreasonable to me, but apparently it did to some others. So just turning that around, your thought process and not having them participate would be helpful as well.
Well, I think it is a good idea to move to.
Yeah, otherwise,
However, just if I may,
Yeah,
with
please.
that in mind. This list, and if there are others. One thing I would ask that, and seek agreement on, is that this isn't something where we agree to one. And then, okay, that's agreed, no matter what happens to the others. This is more about holistically, here are, in this case, you know, 5 different areas. But we need to reach a compromise on them all and not walk out of this room saying, well, we've got an agreement on one, because that's just not a good way to go. If we can find a compromise between us for the whole thing, I think that would be great.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you.
Yeah, okay, great,
And,
great,
you know,
so,
if this is
yeah.
your work, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm somewhat new to this, I pay attention, I sort of know what's going on, but this is helpful.
And John, I hear what you're saying at this point, but you're posited what the outcomes should be. But what hasn't been explored, which I'm asking for still, is that's great. But what's driving these outcomes? And that's where I'm trying to get into these things that are being posited out. Like the fact that, again, more accountable to the people. I'd like to get more of an understanding of that before I start just saying, oh, okay, well, let's just look at these 5 things and we're done. Because I don't feel like we're understanding what the driving principles are. I mean, I can certainly explain the driving principles on our end. But to reach a compromise here, I'm gonna say as one person, I do not understand when I'm presented with, well, by doing this, it makes it more accountable to the people. I don't understand that phrase. I'm just saying, I don't understand it. And so I'd like more depth to it, because unfortunately, that's all I keep hearing is more accountability to the people. It makes me wonder, how are we failing in our accountability?
May I say something, please?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, can I not speak?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. The gesture was kind of like, you didn't want to hear anything. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get more to the bottom of these things to understand what it is that you keep saying we're all missing. So please, help me.
Well, one thing is that the last master plan was developed 15 years ago and has not moved on. You were talking about why we should be happy with
Ken.
what the NPDC has done so far.
Can
The
we?
second, no,
Stop.
may I finish?
All right.
Thank you, finally.
Thank you.
The second thing is that we feel that certain very important voices in the community, such as preservation, are simply not being heard. And they're not being heard because the planning commission is self-appointing, self-reproducing, and has no accountability to the public at large, except through the planning board, which of course is appointed itself. So it just seems to me obvious that there should be wider representation and a greater change in the format and structure of the membership of the NPEDC. I don't see why that's so difficult to understand.
I agree with you, but the reality of that is, so, and again, remember, but as I read this, we've already, on the table is 5 planning board members down to 3. The appointment of the at-large members, the 3 at-large members, to be taken away from just the NEPDC and appointed by a joint committee of the 5 county commissioners and the 5 board members, which for sure, just numerically, is going to include at least 2 NEPDC commissioners
Who were
that
not members of the
that are not
planning board.
members of the planning
Yeah,
board.
let's get it on the table.
Yeah, so, that is to me, that's a big move away from where we are today. Is it elected? No, it's not. Is it a very big step in the right direction? For me, it looks like it is a very good step in the right direction. And that's, we're never going to, if we leave this room without all of us being a little disappointed about the result, then we probably won't have gotten something. So we're not, that's what I'm asking you,
Yeah.
Lori, that you think
So,
about it. Because let me just say, I wish you would not keep saying, and you self-appoint. We've already put on the table that you're right, let's not self-appoint, let's go to a system. I don't know what would be,
Right.
you can do the numbers.
So we still haven't addressed the, elected. Well, I actually want to step back for a minute. I appreciate what, where you're trying to go, John, but given Barry's comments, I just want to acknowledge that, John, you made the motion to continue to work and I agreed on that. And 3 people voted not to bother to negotiate, and 2 of them were then chosen by Barry to be on this commission, himself and Abby, who didn't want to negotiate. So, we're here because we want to have a compromise. It's, it's not necessarily going to be the compromise that we want to have or the compromise that we're going to have. We're going to, be in good faith. But then I'm hearing Barry saying that, Hillary, can you explain again why we need to change it all? Because we think everything is going great. The track record is fine. We are accountable, et cetera, et cetera. And, I might not think too much of that, except for the fact that he also voted not to even negotiate. So, I don't feel right about, I'd like to hear from Barry and from Abby that,
I'm happy to explain my position. It wasn't that I didn't want to compromise. It was that I felt like that this was going to be an exercise where people were going to dig into their positions and it was going to be really hard to arrive at a compromise. And that was why I voted against it, not because I didn't think compromise would be great. I do think it would be great. I think it would have been great 2 years ago, before you put in your article for town meeting that you met with the commission, but that didn't happen. So that was actually the reason I voted against it, not because I don't believe in compromise at all. So I actually, and again, I personally, part of why I was hesitant to be a part of this as well is I'm really sick of the personal attacks and rudeness. And I think that that's what makes it really hard for people to move forward. And I'm personally tired of it. I don't like being attacked. I don't like being told what I think without someone asking me what I think. And that's part of what I think has been really unproductive and made it hard for this to move forward. And I continue to believe that unless people are actually willing to put their egos aside and work together, that's going to make this really hard. And that's my personal opinion, not someone telling me to think that.
And I just want to, well, I want to say too, the reason why I voted against doing that was I really didn't want a work group. I wanted the whole commission to work on this because I thought that was important, not a subset of it in any way, shape, or form. So there's the answer. And I'm gonna stick with that answer of, I really felt it was important for the entire board to work through the process, not a subsect and have it handed back to them.
Okay, but yet here we are, you
Yeah.
know, it was agreed by the commission and, you and Abby are here, so you didn't have to be here, you decided to be here, so we can all assume that everyone is here in good faith.
Yeah.
Looking to reach to some compromise. I have felt personally attacked in this, but I'm gonna step back from that, because it's not actually about me or any one individual in this room. It's about creating a commission that can actually get work, improve the future of this island. So we have a number of different factors. We have the issue of elected appointed, how many at-large seats. We have the issue of preservation and how should that be presented. Those really seem to be the most important and perhaps difficult to resolve, but not impossible to resolve questions. And I think if we resolve them, we will have a more accountable commission that can get its work done. You know, to answer Abby's question, this is just an aside, but Abby did bring up an important point, which is what is the mission? The mission for this regional planning agency is given through Massachusetts general law, chapter 40B. It is here and we have it to plan for the region, the long-term health of the region. And the responsibility of this commission under section 5 is to create comprehensive plans for the region. So, what Georgia mentioned earlier, and you know, to address to clarify the reason why we're spending time on this, it's that there has not been a comprehensive plan for the region in 15 years. And there also was a plan promised from this commission to be delivered no later than annual town meeting of 2023, and it was never even started. It is in your packet, it is a fact. And you know, the different planning director, there's been a lot of talk about, well, the planning board owns the master plan. For 50 years, every single comprehensive plan has been prepared by the planning commission on Nantucket. The planning board can also prepare a plan. And it is true that every municipality's master plan must be accepted by the planning board. But that does not relieve this regional planning agency of its mandate and also its amazing opportunity for Nantucket to do long-range planning. And that is what we're focused on. You know, that is why this legislation is here. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Right, and mine's very quick. We could go around the room, but I'm not sure that anybody disagrees with what this commission should be doing. The way you've articulated it isn't, you know, unfortunately, you know, Leslie did a great job of putting forward a document for the last meeting. We never even got to the important part, which was the vision, mission, and objectives. We spent 2 hours talking about one subject. What I'd just like to say is, do we really disagree with the high level vision of what Hillary has said this commission should be about? At the highest level, do we agree or not agree? Barry?
I'd like to address a few things. You said we've never worked on the vision and mission statement. We actually did, Joe, before you came.
I did not say that. You were not listening. What I said was, we did not.
That's good at the meeting.
At the
We didn't discuss it at our
Oh, at the meeting.
There
but-
it is. We never got past this.
Because we had already worked on it, Jim. I mean, we can
Just
certainly
saying.
revisit it,
Yeah,
but I don't think that's a fair statement to say we never worked on
I
it.
never said.
Okay, it came across, okay,
No,
so I'm,
okay,
my apologies.
thank you.
My apologies, it came across that way to you. Yes, it did, and I'm willing to, okay. I'm not perfect.
Are you guys willing to accept any elected members?
I'd like to go back to some of the stuff we talked about. I don't want to let that off the
Okay,
table.
because we've said that we're willing to accept some appointed members, but not with continuing to be an exception. I mean, there isn't a single board that gets a say in choosing its own members. And there's not a single planning agency of the 13 in Massachusetts that gets a say in selecting its own members. And the only board on Nantucket that gets a say in selecting its own members is the planning board for the remainder of a year until the next election on a vacancy. So it's a very unusual thing to ask for. And that's why we're saying no. So
Are you saying no to the,
we're saying no to the blended appointment body. And we're saying no to you continuing to appoint your own members, but we're not saying no to having some appointed members. Are you willing to accept any directly elected members?
Do you have your hand up?
No, I just had a question.
Yeah.
Because I keep hearing that the larger issue about the appointment process, whether it be blended or keeping it as is having members of the commission be a part of that process. So in the appointment process, if you were to be open to that, in your mind, who should that entity be, or how should that group be comprised?
So in all the other planning commissions, because I do think we're different on Nantucket, but I think we should have some relevance. You know, we do have to get the state to agree to whatever we're doing, so we can't have something that doesn't have any precedent. Of the other planning commissions, they're different appointing bodies. So in some cases, there's a governor's appointee. In some cases, there's a tribal appointee. In some cases, there's a minority representative or representative minority populations. And in almost every case, there is an alternate member or another member chosen by the select board of the towns in the region. And in our case, we do have a board of county commissioners. So I think, and I'd like to hear from other people if they agree, that if we were going to have if we're going to amend the bill, that's, ask the Senate to amend the bill to include some appointed members, I think it's likely to be the county commissioners. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that's what we do with virtually all committees on the island. It has a president. It's interesting. I did my little bit of homework for the meeting was to look at the Martha's Vineyard Commission and the Cape Cod Commission. And they are different because they are truly regional. Martha, I think of the vineyards sort of fake regional. Those are not big towns, but you look at the Cape and their commission is populated by members from each town all over the Cape. And each one of those are appointed mostly by their select board, I believe. So that's a different vision. We could envision maybe we should have, it's almost like going from town meeting to a town council. And if you carve the island up into wards, maybe we should have planning districts and have a member of the planning commission from each district. I'm sort of kidding, but not really. And I think that gets back to the public representation that comes through an election. People who are truly interested and think they want to influence the way the planning process is going and live in Wisconsin and don't feel their issues got enough recognition, they can run for office and try and influence the voters to support them. It's a little more difficult to do that, but it's possible in the appointment process. You sort of get people's ear and make your case. But I just point that out as I think a good reason to think that elections can have an influence on how the process works in a positive way. So
It's an important point because we are a region, and the reason why we were allowed to have a regional planning agency when we asked back in 1973 is because although we don't have multiple towns, we do have villages.
Mhm.
You know, Wisconsin has its own zip code. And so we do have regions, we have surrounding waters and multiple islands.
Yeah, just. I'm always counting my blessings as to we are one of 13 regional planning agencies, no question about it.
We were very lucky.
We are.
Your predecessors.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be getting breadcrumbs.
I'm with you.
Thank Jack Gardner.
Well, there's a number of people, but he was certainly instrumental in it. I'm back to the underpinnings of why we're doing certain things, and I'd like to at least address two issues that came up. This concept of the plan, which I'm assuming you're referring to the master plan, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so the master plan is 12 to 15 years out of date. That's
15.
15, all right, but
Almost
I've
16.
heard numbers bandied around.
Well, it's a 2009 master plan.
That's correct. The plan was adopted and set in motion in 2009. And had an approximate 10-year span to it. Sometimes these things do take a little bit longer. I think one of the things I would offer to you is that in doing this, we frequently have to go, in order to get something done, we just don't do it. The next phase is to have to start reaching out into the neighborhoods and working with them directly to try to get something implemented. That takes time. That really does take time. But in the end, I think we get a far better process out of that. But make no mistake about the master plan is dictated under 4181D to the planning board. Somehow, in all of the talks, it keeps getting assigned to the planning commission. And that is an incredibly false statement. So I'm troubled when I hear, and I'm troubled by the way it's positive that the plan is 12 to 15 years out of date. If I wanted to set the 10-year mark to it religiously, I would argue with you, you could maybe say it's 5 years out of date. Okay, but when I hear that keep getting espoused by individuals, is the fallacies here need to be corrected. And I think there needs to be some understanding is that 10-year update to the plan is not an absolute. It's a recommendation for it. So I'd probably say we've tried our best to get as close as we can toward getting all the major elements that we tried to do in the master plan in place, and it's taken us a bit longer. It's part of the process. The wheels of governments don't move that swiftly, but we have in the process decided to re-update and continue with more of the master plan now that these pieces are in place. And sometimes you've got to wait for the pieces to be in place to see what you all need to do afterwards. So it's not what I would call a perfect process, but I get very troubled with how the assignment is put into place and how it's being toted back out to the public about this particular commission. So I'm puzzled as to why that keeps being brought up that way.
Barry, it keeps getting brought up because it's this commission's responsibility to plan comprehensively for the future of Nantucket. And everything, all of the problems that we have today are because of things that weren't done 15 to 20 years ago, including the windmills. It is a regional planning agency. It sets the vision for the community. It is not regulatory. It advises, it sets policy. And what you are saying is that you're happy with how things are going, you're happy with the planning process, and that's your prerogative, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people who feel that way, but the petitioners who are looking for change disagree. And, you know, we don't have to convince you of that. We are asking the people of Nantucket, and the voters of Nantucket have agreed that they want to do things differently. And now we are bringing this back to town meeting a second time to find out if there is a wider margin of support. And the other reason why we're bringing it back is that there was nothing on the town meeting warrant at annual town meeting this year, 2024. And town meeting was promised personally by you, Mary, that there would be your version of a update to the legislation on the town meeting warrant, and there wasn't. Then I waited because, Barry, you know, one of the reasons why you think I'm not in your meetings is that this commission chose to continue to meet by Zoom webinar up until, I think the first meeting was May or June of this year, we met again in person. I was in those meetings, often with my head up, you know, and I could not participate because of the format.
Yeah.
So I was there, and when I heard that there would be, I heard from you, Barry, a person on the commission said, I think it was Bert Johnson, said, will we be bringing anything to special town meeting as in 2024 as far as an update to the legislation? And you said, I don't think so, because we have a lot of work to do with the boat speed issue. And that's when I said, you know, this commission, this petition, this bill is going to die in committee. The planning commission has made promises. They haven't brought anything. And they will continue to not bring anything if we don't put this back on the warrant.
Can I
So
ask
the reason why it's back is because of the inaction.
May I ask the rest of this, do we think we've gone down this far enough?
Yes.
And should move on?
I tried to move on to another
Because-
issue.
Well, can I just insert real quick? The meeting was scheduled from 12 to 12:30.
11 to 12.
I mean, 11 to 12:30. It's 12:20.
All right.
So I think we should maybe switch gears and focus on scheduling.
Oh.
Yeah,
The next
but
meeting or meeting.
I'm sorry, I asked a simple question of, could you envision having even one
Yes,
directly
so I
elected
would like
member?
to come back to that if I may.
John, I'm sorry, I hate to do this,
Well,
but
but you are doing it though. I think, I've been trying to answer that question. Barry, and we've been off down, master plan.
I think it might be helpful if each one of you perhaps answer that.
Yeah.
Your own perspective.
please, John, go right ahead.
So, well, I want to answer it, but I also want to just correct something about our work group, the three of us. Barry, you said you voted against it because you didn't want decisions made by anything other than the commission, and that's still the truth. We are not empowered, the three of us, to say, okay, we got a deal, it's done. We do not have that. We are not empowered to do that. What we are empowered to do is to reach some kind of compromise and then take that back to the full commission. And I hope Hillary, you understand that.
Yeah, of course, I understand that. Yeah,
So-
this was just
So
to,
with that said, yeah, I will. I guess I'm gonna throw a question back and say, well. Is one enough for you? Elected.
so we have said that we are willing to have, you know, we don't need 5. Okay, and I'm not gonna we're not gonna negotiate against ourselves. You haven't given on a single thing.
Well, we
You
have.
know, we said that we can live with the bigger commission, even though we think it's a bad idea. We said that we can live with, you know, a mix of appointed and elected members. And you've not, and we said we need preservation. And we can't see a single reason why it shouldn't be the people selected by the select board to advocate for preservation planning should appoint that person, the same as we have, you know, other boards appointing people. You couldn't agree to that. So I'm not gonna negotiate against myself, and I'm also not going to, you know, I frankly, I think the tactic is a trap. Because you've not been willing to say anything, and then you want to presumptively close that it would just be
No,
gone.
I'm not trying to close anything. You asked a question, I'm trying to answer it.
Yeah, you answered
But
it
what-
with a question.
What we.
The answer should be yes or no.
Oh, well,
I think John's trying to So just sort of think about what we're up to here in a broader context, and I appreciate that. And whether it's one or two or three elected, who knows? And we might find some compromise there, we might not. But I do think that sort of looking at your mission is helpful, but I think we're really talking more about the structure of the commission and how it's arrived at. And I appreciate you're getting off the self-appointed community representatives partially. I'd like you to go one more step, quite frankly, because I think that's in all of our interest. I think that's the way you generate more community-wide support for what you're doing as a commission when you're not isolated amongst yourselves. And I think it's to your benefit to do that. You two and the commission as a whole. I didn't follow all of your meetings, but I suspect there may be some members of your board who would appreciate that point of view. And I think that's valuable. So I just wanted to go through that.
That's good, thank you.
Okay.
So if I may. Hillary, I want to address the things that you brought up, although time is now short at this point. You brought up a lot of stuff about promises that I made, how the commission has kind of responded to things. And I would really like maybe at the next meeting to take a little bit of time to respond back to that. Because I don't think you necessarily know the whole picture behind it, and maybe knowing the whole picture may help.
The whole
Okay.
picture behind what?
Behind what I had said at the beginning of 2024 and where we're at today with the commission in relation to dealing with the legislation.
About your coming up and putting something on the warrant or not, about that?
I think also you said too, how it kind of came across as, and I'm just gonna, this is that I made a promise and I didn't keep the promise to the town, and I can understand where you're coming from with that, but I don't think you necessarily know the entire picture behind it. But
Well,
I would like to be able to address kind of what's happened in that whole process, because that, to me, that's very important. So if you're gonna put assignment to me to that and just throw that out there, I'd also like to be able to respond back in kind to it so that I think maybe you all have a better understanding.
so, sure, I
Please.
mean, it was just a quote that you said, I personally promise you, so. It's a quote, but, I think we are short, we have been here for some time, and I appreciate everybody being here. The goal was to see if there are some areas that we could compromise on, and, how are you all feeling, including the people, petitioners and people in the room, interested parties?
Well, I'll say one further thing on the historical commission as one of your members. I would have thought that was a really sort of an easy give, but something happened there. I don't know what it is. You two could explain that perhaps, but I think that in of itself would be very helpful. Set aside the elected appointed issue, okay? I've been through that as a select board member and a finance committee member for a lot of years, and there are points of view on both sides of that. But making sure the commission does have a strong voice for historical preservation, I think is a good thing. And I think you again would benefit from community-wide support for your efforts by agreeing to that.
Is that something you think you could, among the, well, Abby is Abby still
I
on the
think we
call?
lost Abby.
Abby
Yeah,
rolled off, but among the two of you, could you agree to that?
I think I'd like some good discussion first.
So, not yet.
I'd like to know what the reasoning is for not.
Well,
I mean, I will.
it's 12, almost 12:30, and I'm gonna answer Rick. And remind everybody what I said earlier. For me, I don't think that's a non-starter, I don't, but I think it has to be in context of all other things.
I agreed with you when you said that
Yeah.
to begin with, John.
That's just my own opinion, so.
Barry, could you agree to any elected members?
I'd like to just work the issue out a little further. I'm not saying no to you. But I would like to work through some of the premises and really figure out why we would want to do that.
Why
process.
you'd say yes.
Can I just
Simple,
ask-
yeah.
Just interject and go back to your timing issues here. You know, to amend the article at town meeting is gonna have to have the approval for scope
Right,
from the town manager. And that might be difficult on some of these specific issues.
mhm,
So I think we need to, in some ways, think about going back to the beginning here. Is the article could well be called, there may be more people in favor of the article who come to town meeting than came the last time. I think we have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for that. So how we get from here to some other avenue, I think is difficult. You know, I don't think it's in Hillary's benefit or our benefit to agree to have the article set aside, to stand up and say, we want town meeting to set this aside because we've come to an agreement. I think this conversation suggests that agreement is gonna be difficult and it's non-binding in any case. The NP and EDC can change its mind anytime, and I recognize that. So there's a big risk to people who supported the article in the first place, unless we find some way to be pretty specific about resolution of our issues here.
Yeah, we have the chair of the commission has a lot of influence on the commission. The chair is in the room, you're the chair, and, I'm not getting the sense that, well, let me step back for a minute and just say, there's been a lot of time and this has come to town meeting 3 times. It's been on the plate 2.5 years.
mhm.
It's passed a town meeting and the planning board asked the select board not to send it to the State House. The members of the commission, and John, you are a new member, but there was a hearing at the State House and members of the commission and others personally testified not to report positively because they were going to put an article on the 2024 town meeting warrant. And that was the goal. So I think time's up. There's been plenty of opportunity to say, yes, we agree, we should change in reasonable ways, we should be responsive to this article that was passed at town meeting. And that hasn't happened. And then we came here to show that it doesn't have to be 5 elected members. It can be some appointed members. And we said some, and all we got from the chair of the commission was, we need a little more time to work on this. And I think there's somebody in the room here who can speak up if she chooses, that's also heard that for a long time after a lot of work being done on planning. So I can't agree to additional meetings for discussion at this time because the meet the articles is on the 29th of September. And it's not fair to town meeting and the 211 petitioners who have signed this.
I'm reading the second.
Okay.
Yeah, actually.
If I had heard a yes when I asked, maybe things would be different, but I didn't even hear yes to that. And the historical commission, again, well, there are other considerations. It's a very easy yes. So I agree that we weren't that far away, but actually we're still too far away. Okay, so I guess,
2 seconds.
yeah.
I'm sorry I'm late, mixer blew up, and then the drivers gave me a van that ran out of gas. So it's one of those mornings in my world.
I didn't even know you were here.
I'm hiding. But this reminds me a little bit of the whole short-term rental thing, where there was a lot of, a lot of distrust, and it's very polarized. And some of us have been working, very hard trying to break some of that down. And I think some of the actions that the planning board took recently, where they listened and made a couple changes, have started to build some trust. And I feel like there's a dialogue, and John Kitchen's been part of it. It's very difficult to break through some of the scar tissue that has been built up over so many years. I think that this issue is similar and, you know, and I look at the historic commission as an easy give. You know, I think could be an easy give that could build some, you know, some trust again. It's an important, you know, historicals, when you drive around and you see some of the stuff that's happening that we've been told for years we're gonna take care of. Oh yeah, that, we won't let that happen. It's rampant, and I think that the people that care about that, care about it deeply, and it affects our economy deeply. And us being credible and being, authentic is a huge part of our sales, you know, why people like being out here. And I think that, you know, so I think it should have a really big place at the table. You know, I think historic preservation, a really big place at the planning table, because it's what our whole economy is based on. And so I hope that, you know, I hope that the board sees fit to, you know, sort of go that direction, you know, and if we can do that sooner rather than later, you know, and go united to, you know, to the, meet the candidates and to this special town meeting and put this behind us, I think that would be amazing. So, you know, that's my plea, is to not drag this out for another, till the spring or till the year after. I think that you're really close. I think maybe, you know, maybe everyone goes home and sleeps on it and meets again in a couple days, but I think there's something to be done here, so.
Yeah.
When is the NPDC meeting?
Monday,
On Monday.
Monday at 5.
So I think we've tried to give some shape to something that, you know, if you all want to have a discussion on Monday about, you know, how many elected members would you be willing to add? And would you be willing to add the historical commission? We could then talk to Sarah Alger, our moderator, about whether or not this could be amended. And that the petition, I as the lead petitioner would offer a motion to amend with knowing that I had your support. And that would be a big give from us, given that this is already a bill on the State House floor, but you know, we want to agree. It's just that we have to have something that is a reasonable middle point, you know, not, and we haven't heard it yet, but maybe it's still there. So I support Matt's comment and would look forward to.
Well,
Monday.
I'd only say that before the meeting on Monday, I do think we need to have another one of these, because if without it, but
Open meeting law, so it'd have to be Monday morning or sometime earlier in the day, Monday. Can't be this week.
yeah, because I haven't, I think was, Matt, I agree with everything you said. But we have to take this one more step before we.
Well, maybe one step could be, you know, Barry is welcome to reach out to me directly. It would not constitute a violation of open meeting law for him to do that. He is the chair. He can communicate with me as a member of the public, and I invite you to do that, Barry. I invite you to a coffee to sit down.
And I have always wanted you to do that with me, but there are some things that's great, I'm absolutely thrilled. But there are some things that you've brought out today in a much broader scale that I would like to be able to address on that broad scale. Because I don't think you necessarily have the entire picture behind things, and I'd like to be able to address some of those issues.
That would be great.
And so I'm a little concerned because you've already made, and I can see why, but you've made assignment that, as far as you're concerned with me, things are said, done, and there's no understanding of what's going on underneath it all. I felt that way.
I've invited, and I am happy to sit down with you. I don't, as staff has pointed out, we don't have time to have another meeting of this subcommittee, but as lead petitioner and as you, you're only recently the chair, but now the chair, we could sit down and talk. And
I think you could
If we
too.
wanted.
So I think I would suggest either, if we're gonna meet before the commission meeting, it has to be at some point during the day on Monday.
Yeah.
Otherwise, perhaps same place next week, so that way you could get the feedback of the commission. It's up to you, or, you know, we're too far apart and we don't meet at all, so it's the will of.
Megan, I have one more thing I want to say about that, because Rick said a few minutes ago. You know, it looks to him like this is more about structure. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you know.
Did I say that?
Something.
I think I do believe that.
Yeah, and I agree with it. So whilst these broader things need to, I guess, be aired. But there has been 2.5 years of airing all that. So my thought is more about we need to get to these 5 points and see structurally, do we have something or not? Rather than spend 4 hours about who said what to who, you know, and when. And I'm sure that's very valuable, but it's not going to get us across the line though, not with this. So I guess my thought would be, do we want to work as a group Monday morning then? You guys have your coffee and then we have a group meeting on Monday morning to see if we cannot get a structural thing that we all agree with. That's
And John, I'd be fine if we even did it on Wednesday and if need be. There's no reason why we can't have a special meeting of the NBDC above and beyond. We don't have to.
Why not do it Monday morning, Barry?
We can, I'm just offering that's not the only solution. I'm fine, personally, I'm fine with whatever people want to do. I'm just offering a different alternative to say we could do something different and not have it dependent upon that Monday night meeting only. You know, and I think that offers a little bit more breathing space for things, but that's just, I'm just giving a different viewpoint. Whatever you all want to do is, I'm kind of fine with either way.
So I think what I said is we're up against a hard deadline of the articles, which is on the 29th.
That's Thursday.
Then that's
That's
Thursday.
Thursday.
It looks as though a Monday morning meeting
Yeah.
would be more efficient.
So do we want to call it 9 to 11 on Monday, see this room and on Zoom? Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, but not 3
Can we
hours.
do 10 to
No.
12?
10 to 12?
10 to 12.
And you know,
Okay, 10 to 12 is fine.
And I actually think Barry and I should talk before then. Because I think Barry, you know, I don't know, maybe we do have some misunderstanding that we could work out.
Yeah.
I would support that, please.
We,
Could we go back to the 9 though?
9, we prefer 9 to
Would that
11.
be, it's just that I'm coming up against something else. So.
So I would need to join by Zoom. 'Cause I'm not gonna be on island on Monday. But I can, I would say maybe we want to have a Zoom meeting.
We could do Zoom morning.
I'm happy to come to, yeah, I'm happy to come to it.
Well, I mean, that's just hard. I have a family, so.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Obviously,
saying, but you could join by Zoom.
We can all meet in
Yeah.
here. Yeah, that's fine. So are we at 9 or are we at 10? 9.
Would be really great. Can we be rushing out of it?
I don't care, whatever y'all want to
Right.
do.
Great, well, and see you all at 9 o'clock Monday morning.
Sounds good. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Have a call.